joined by Paul Fitzpatrick of the Anglo Celt to talk about the latter stages of the Cavan Championship, Armagh Championship and Fermanagh Championship. Paul, just to talk to you first of all broadly about the Cavan Championship, it's been very high scoring, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. It's mad. It's last weekend in the semi-finals, like, we had amazing scoring, and throughout the group stage, teams would have needed to get about the equivalent of 19 points to win most games. And there weren't mismatches, to be fair, in the senior. Now there were a couple, all right, but we just had a load of really close, really high scoring games. Last weekend we had two games, two senior championship quarterfinals that went to extra time. One of them was 2-15 to 22 points, I think. The other was 3-13 to
21. I actually have the results here. I'll call them out to you.
Yeah.
Cavan Gales beat Rammer United 2-19 to 15. Kings Court beat Mullahoran by a point, 22 points to 2-15. Crossherlock 2-19, Gowna 3-10, and Castleran 3-13. Lavey 21 points. So they were absolute shootouts.
Oh, absolute shootouts. Now, two of those went to extra time, all right. But the Crossherlock Gowna game didn't go to extra time, and we saw one of the greatest goals I've ever seen in Gaelic football, scored by Conor Madden in that game, where it's actually, you can get it on Twitter if you have a look. A high ball went into the square, and I think a defender got a fist to it. Madden was about 10 yards out at an angle. He had loads of time, but he's a very instinctive player, and he just pulled on it soccer style. The fellow who covered the game for us, Kevin Carney, described it as Marco van Basten. Like, he just pulled on it with a full volley and stuck it in the roof of the net. It was incredible. But it's been a really good championship, and I actually think, we touched on this last time, that it's something to do with lockdown and the fact that teams didn't think they were going to get any football this year. And, there hasn't been as many collective sessions. You didn't have months and months fixated on one opponent, your first round opponent. In Cavan, the draws made fresh every week, so it's not a thing that you're in a group of four and you can examine everyone. It's actually a really good system in Cavan. So basically, it's an open draw every week, and every team is in one group, and after 4 rounds there's a table drawn up, and the top 8 go into the quarterfinals. It's actually a really good system. Derrygonnelly adopted it this year. So
you're never too sure, like, even after 3 games, are we definitely first, are we definitely second, any of that kind of thing?
Yeah, no, you're not. And now after 3 games you could be through. There will be a few teams already through, like, especially if you've got 3 wins, you'll be through. But usually you need 5 points to guarantee yourself getting through. 4 points. Usually there's a couple of teams goes through on 4, depending on score difference. Now, the draw is crucial, because if you have one really weak team, which can happen in the junior championship in Cavan, we have that. We have maybe 1 or 2 teams that are well off the pace. That can skew it, because score difference is so important. So if you can draw that team, it's really a 3-pointer, because you'll win and you'll get a big score difference up. But it's a really good system. But we're seeing absolute shootouts. I think that's my theory, is that teams got a bit of a reprieve, didn't expect any football to be played, and they're just going out and they're just playing ball, they're attacking. They haven't had months to work on defensive systems at all.
And it's probably even the same type of thing relates to all the penalty shootouts and extra times we're seeing. Teams haven't had that chance to plan for each other. They're probably all similar enough in terms of fitness and game plans and all that sort of things. And I don't know, maybe just teams aren't as well oiled a machine, and it just ends up with these real tight games and high scoring games, and I don't know, it's making for great football, great drama. Like, you even saw it again. Did you see the free taking competition or the penalties last week in Antrim in the dark?
Yeah, amazing. Like, it's the stuff that legends are made of there. Like, to be scoring a winning penalty at sunset, it's like something from a novel. But you imagine that you spend the whole lockdown thinking there's going to be no football, and maybe you're a player and you're doing a little bit of training on your own. You finally get back, your first night out, you're mad to play ball, and the manager goes, "Okay, let's start working on our blanket defence." He'd get run up the road. So I think the teams just got back and they said, let's just go out and play. And I know there is a place, of course, there's a place for tactics, and you have to play defensively at times, but sometimes teams are defensive for the sake of being defensive, and I think you'll find that players are really enjoying this championship as well.
So talk to us about the games coming up in Cavan and the ones you're looking forward to the most.
Yeah, well, we're down to the senior championship semi-finals. What the county board made a decision last week that they were going to bring in a 3-week gap in the senior championship. Originally, the week before, there had been a meeting of the county executive, and some officers wanted to see a temporary halt to the championship, put it back for maybe 3 weeks and play a couple of rounds of league games. And the idea was to allow people in to see the games first and foremost, and also to get some money into the coffers, because the gate receipts in Cavan were almost €400,000 last year. Local gate receipts is by far the biggest chunk of their revenue. Like, when you take out contra expenses and things like that, it's about 40% of their actual revenue comes from gate receipts, and that's down to a pittance this year. So there's that, but it's not only that. And people sometimes say, "Oh, gee, yeah, it's just the money end of it," but it's not, because I interviewed the chairman last week, and he was really, really strong on the restrictions that are in place at the minute, and he actually described it as morally wrong. He said it's so wrong to keep people from seeing their teams. You know, the GA is a community organisation built on volunteers, and the payback for these volunteers is that they get to savour the games, and you're not getting it. And you're also driving people from a safe environment. This is his words. You're driving people from a safe environment of, we'll say, a stadium like Kingspan Breffni with 25,000 capacity, which is an excellent health and safety record, where they can socially distance and all the rest of it, to unsafe environments, which is standing on the side of a farmer's hill, maybe congregating under trees. I saw fellas standing on silage pits last week to watch a game. It's a pity I didn't get a photograph of it. And also into pubs and hotels to watch games, which are being streamed. So from that point of view, it's just such an unusual championship. Last weekend, we saw a massive result for Cavan Gaels. They beat Rammer, who Rammer had beaten Cavan Gaels by 9 points in the group stage. 2 weeks later, the Gaels won it by 10 points. McKernan, man of the match, the new signing for Cavan Gaels in the off-season, probably the best known Cavan footballer at the minute. And he played his best game yet for the Gaels. I think he scored something like 7 or 8 points, turned in a huge performance. Then in the other games, you had Castlerahan, who are the 2-time defending champions. They've also won the league in Cavan the last 2 years, so they've been the dominant team. They're trying to make their 6th county final in a row. They lost 3 in a row before they came through and won their 2. But they played Lavey, who are a good senior team. But generally, with respect to Lavey, they don't trouble the really big teams, but they really trouble Castlerahan always. And they actually drew 3 times in the last 3 years. And they drew again at the end of normal time last week, and then Castlerahan won it by a point in extra time, it's incredible how Lavey can always push Castlerahan. Obviously, Mackie has gone from Castlerahan, he's gone to Mullinachta, but they're still looking as good as ever. Then you had Crushallock beat Garda, a young team, Crushallock, who were in the county final 2 years ago, were in the semi-final last year, and they beat Garda. That was the game where Conor Madden got that great goal. And in the other game, mine has gone blank at the minute.
Kingscourt and Mullahoran.
Oh, sorry, Kingscourt and Mullahoran. Yeah. So that was an interesting one, because Kingscourt were 8-1 on to win that. They had won all their group games, and they played a Mullahoran team who this is a quirk of that system that I was bigging up there a minute ago. But it just this year, I've never seen it happen before in the 5 years in Cavan. But Mullahoran won their first round and lost the rest of their games in the group. They lost 3 in a row and looked to be really on a low ebb. But just the way the results played out, one team was going to get through on 2 points in 8th place, and that was Mullahoran. They just had the best score difference because they had a big win in the first day. And so they went in against Kingscourt. So first played 8th, obviously, in the quarterfinals. People thought that was going to be an absolute turkey shoot for Kingscourt, but it actually went to extra time, and it was a hell of a game. You had Barry Riley, former Cavan player, scored 11 points. And Cormac O'Reilly, who's the son of Damien O'Reilly, former Cavan great, who famously scored, speaking of volleys, he scored that volley point against Donegal in '92. Damien's son Cormac scored, I think, 9 or 10 points from Mullahoran at the other end. So a shootout, but Kingscourt won it. So the way the semi-final draw is working out is Kingscourt play Kingscourt play Cavan Gaels, which is probably the draw that they didn't want to get. And on the other side, you've got a Castlerahan and Crushallock, which is a repeat of the county final 2 years ago. That's the local derby as well. So that's really going to be the pick of the game, is because Kingscourt have picked up an injury to their key man, who's Joe Dillon, the full forward. Looks like he won't be fit, so the Gaels are going to be favourites there. The other game's 50-50.
And who are Kingscourt going to look to try and curb Gearóid McKernan if he's coming into this game in hot form?
Well, Pádraig Faulkner is, like, for my money, Pádraig Faulkner is the best footballer in the county at the moment. Like, he plays full back for Cavan seniors. I saw Kingscourt playing Larry United in the group stages. Faulkner started full forward, he went to midfield, finished up full back. He can play anywhere on the field. He's an absolutely outstanding player, and he's actually one of the top goal scorers in the county at the minute, would you believe, as well. I think he scored 3 goals for Cavan this year, playing full back, and they only played a handful of games. They did 5 league games and a couple of McKenna Cup games, and he's scoring goals for his club as well, because he's so powerful. He's able to break tackles, and he can finish when he gets in front. So I'd imagine Faulkner will go on Gearóid McKernan, but the thing is, the Gaels have a lot of quality, and to be honest, coming into the championship and talking on our podcast, I was writing off the Gaels, and I'm going to have egg on my face now, because I thought they were an Asian team, and even with Gearóid McKernan, I didn't think they were going to be good enough to come back, but they are. They've got Martin Dunn, former Cavan players, playing well. Johnny Johnston came off the bench and scored 4 points last week. Paul O'Connor, he's a former Cavan player. He's a cousin of Killian and Jeremy O'Connor from Mayo, and he's like them too. He's a hell of a forward. So they've got a lot, and they've got good lads at the back as well, like Luke Fortune would be on the Cavan senior panel at the moment as well. So they have a lot of quality. Niall Murray is missing. He's got a long-term injury at the minute, but his brother Stephen, who's on the Cavan panel, is playing there as well. So the Gaels are strong. I'd imagine it'll be Faulkner to pick up McKernan though, so that'll be a battle worth watching.
And if you were to call it?
If I had to call that game, it's got to be the Gaels. The other game, I can't call that one. It's going to be close. I tipped Crusherlaw before the championship, but at the time there was a lot of talk that Castlerahan were weakened. Obviously they'd lost Mackey, and they've got Ronan Flanagan, the former Cavan captain, and Paul Smith, who's an outstanding club player in Cavan. And the talk was that both neither Smith nor Flanagan were going to play. And there was 2 rounds of league played, neither lad featured. But when it came to the crunch, I think they returned to training a week before the championship. As you could have probably predicted, and both lads are. Paul Smith wasn't playing last again, but Ronan Flanagan came off the bench to get the crucial goal, and Paul Smith will be back. So I don't see any huge drop off from the Castlerahan team, and like they're in the habit of getting to county finals now. It's no big deal for Castlerahan to win a semi-final, so that's going to be. I couldn't call that one. It's going to be so close.
Has losing Keane Mackey changed how they play? Are they doing it a different way?
Not really. No, not really. Like Mackey, I think I mentioned this to you before. Like Mackey was always known as a speedster, and like he could beat a man. Like back in 2013 when Cavan got the All-Ireland quarter-final, there was the highlight reels of Mackey going around. I remember he appeared himself on the Sunday game, but there was so much buzz around him. He was beating men. He scored a goal against Armagh in the Ulster Championship where he ran 50 yards and drop kicked it into the corner. But actually, in actual fact, as the years have gone on, obviously he didn't have the same pace, but it was his passing is unbelievable. He's thought of as just a real speed freak, but it's actually his passing what I thought was the biggest part of his game. So obviously they've lost that. But they seem to have been able to cope with it because they brought in this fella, Porrick Smith, who played 2 years ago, was missing last year. He's come back into midfield. David Wright, who was a big midfielder for them for the last few years, he was injured at the tail end of last year. He's back in the team. And they've brought in this young corner forward called Cian McCabe as well. He's doing really well. So that's basically 3 new players. So to counteract the loss of Mackey, they've got these 3 new lads in. And they have lost their goalkeeper has moved on, and their centre forward Brian Ennis is not playing either. But I still think that they've got enough. I don't see much slippage in them, to be honest.
Okay, so close games there you're probably expecting. We'll move on to Armagh then. The semi-finals happened a week or so ago. Crossmaglen, they saw off Killeavy 15 points to 13, but that was like a big scare there. Cross are chasing 3 in a row, and Mahary beat Pearse Oak 112 to 10 points. That's like, you've got the Mahary, they're in the 3rd final in 5 seasons. Crossmaglen, as I said, 3 in a row, and obviously lots of titles before that. Mouthwatering final?
Yeah, look, Crossmaglen are going to go in as big favourites. If Killeavy had beaten Crossmaglen, I think, talking to people in Armagh, it would have been the biggest upset in decades. Sometimes you see the favourites, when they survive a scare like that, again, it's just like we're saying about players getting back to play when there's no games. They just go out and play, and it's just total relief, and they're able to express themselves then in the final. So it is possible that Crossmaglen could run through Mahary in the final. But Mahary are a dogged team, and they always are able to give Crossmaglen trouble. The fact that they are one of the 3 teams who has won the championship, who has broken Crossmaglen's dominance, like Pearse Oak won it in 09, Mahary won it in 16, Armagh Harps I think it was won it in 17. So they have got over that psychological hurdle in the past, because you'd have to imagine, I don't watch that much football in Armagh, but you'd have to imagine that so much of the psychological about Crossmaglen. There has to have been times where there have been teams just as good as them and just weren't able to slay that Crossmaglen dragon. Like Ballymacnab probably should have won the championship, at least one of the last 2, if not both years, but Cross just had that hoodoo over the other team. So I think it's potentially a good final, and Mahary won't be cowed by Crossmaglen. Like Aidan Falker's still there, he's their go-to man. James Lavery, like not as mobile as he was, but still a key man for them. Stephen Falker is there. On the Crossmaglen side, you've got the O'Neills. Aaron Kiernan is still one of the main men. Stephen Morris, very strong player around the middle as well. So you have a lot of quality on both sides. It's hard to call it. You could see Crossmaglen winning that by 10 points, but you wouldn't fall over with shock if Mahary won it either. But like Cross are going to be favourites, no doubt about it.
And then the Fermanagh semi-finals are also on this weekend. Derrygonnelly against Connolly and Timor against Ederny.
Yeah, Connolly, there's an awful lot of talk about Connolly at the moment. Even in the Cavan, you can hear people talking about them. There's a Cavan man over them, Ollie Fay, who managed the Donegal or the Fermanagh under 20s or under 21s. who beat Donegal a couple of years ago in the Ulster Championship, which was massive because Fermanagh have a dreadful record in that competition. Very rare that they even get a win in it in the last 10 years. For them to beat Donegal was absolutely huge. Ollie Fay previously trained New York as well. He was based over there. He's done a really good job with Connolly. They beat Aaron Gales in the quarterfinals, and they've got the Corrigan brothers, obviously, Sean Doherty, a lot of lads with county experience. But the problem for them is they're coming up against Derrygonnelly. So if Connolly can beat Derrygonnelly, who haven't lost a game since the preliminary round in 2014 when Timor beat them. So they're on one of the most dominant runs of any club in the country at the minute. They're going for 6 in a row, and they've actually got a very small squad. They don't have a 40-man squad or anything like it. They've got a few families. They've got the likes of the Joneses and McGullions. These few families providing brothers and cousins. The epitome of what you come to expect from a country club. They're a phenomenal club, and probably should have made more of an impact in Ulster by now than they have. They've been unlucky a few times in Ulster. They've been to semi-finals, and but they're a really good outfit. You know, like Sir Ryan Jones, Conal Jones, like could make any club side. And the other side of it, you've got Timor and Ederney, which is going to be a good game as well, because Timor, traditional kingpins in Fermanagh, like back to the 60s and 70s, Timor were winning a lot of senior championships back then. And they'd fancy that. Again, they're the last team to beat Derrygonnelly, as I said. And they're again a country club as well, on the Cavan border. Home club of Barry Owens, the likes of Cian McManus, McCrory Cup winning captain, his cousin Owen McManus. So there's a lot of good youngsters on that Timor side as well. So that's going to be a good one. But at this stage of the game, Derrygonnelly got to be favourites. Like, you'd be a brave man to put money against Derrygonnelly, but Connolly potentially is a fairy tale story.
Absolutely. Great stuff, Paul Fitzpatrick of the Anglo Celt. Appreciate it.
No problem, Shane.